live from New York. My name is Nathan Harvey. This is the Harvey Hour Fired Up. Like I said, some new things are going on. We're bringing back the Harvey Hour Fired Up. It's good to be back. Good to be back here. We got some really good topics headed for you on today's. Going to be probably a quick show of the Harvey Hour Fired Up today. Thank you all for joining me today on this sort of unexpected. I didn't really say on Monday whether or not I'd be doing the Harvey Hour Fired Up today, but I decided to do it anyway. So I want to get into our first topic because I think this first topic is pretty interesting, and we could be seeing a potential, remake of a Trey Lance situation, and that is from Jim Irsay on the Pat McAfee show. So he went on and said that he wants to see Anthony Richardson start right away, and this was his quote. He goes, "As you guys know, Peyton's year, we were 3-13. That's a guy who played a lot of college games and was really prepared as much as he could be for the league. So for Anthony Richardson, it's going to be tough. We know that, but he has to play to get better. I mean, there's no question. Gardner Minshew could come out and play better early on, him just being a veteran. But we have to get Anthony on the field, and that's Shane Steichen's call when he decides to do it." And this was the big thing, right? Anthony Richardson barely playing any college ball. He played only, 2 primary years with Florida, but really the last year was his main year, his sophomore season. 54% completion percentage, 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. I don't love the touchdown to interception ratio there. It's actually less than a 2-to-1 TD to interception ratio. And so we're really seeing a situation similar to Trey Lance. Trey Lance, he sat out the COVID year, but prior to that, he played he played 3 seasons before that COVID year. But really, in his 3 years of college, he really barely played. And going into the NFL, he only played really a game in 2 years. So Trey Lance was the rawest quarterback, and I think that's what a lot of people saw. Trey Lance was the rawest quarterback coming out of this draft class with Mac Jones and with Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence and even Justin Fields. All these quarterbacks were more developed than Trey Lance, and it seemed to be a good situation for Trey Lance going to a Kyle Shanahan offense who was at least the GM, John Lynch, fell in love with his intangibles. And I've mentioned this on the show before, Kyle Shanahan is basically like a QB whisperer when it comes to, average to below average quarterbacks. He seemingly, finds a lot of success because his offense is very, very simple. And that's why a guy like Brock Purdy, who's Mr. Irrelevant, can come in and go 7-0 and look really great. He got hurt in the game against Philly, so I'm not really counting that, but he started 7-0 and looked phenomenal doing it. As a lot of people think, average to below average quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, he got him to a Super Bowl and got him to another NFC championship game. So what can you say about Kyle Shanahan? This pickup was questionable, and now we have another situation where maybe a not-so-developed quarterback like Anthony Richardson is going into a team and the owner is saying to start him. Now, is that a good idea? I think personally it is a phenomenal idea because the problem with Trey Lance is I can go back and forth with a lot of you out there, and I have in the comments section because I've talked about this Trey Lance situation, what the 49ers should do with Trey Lance for a very long time now, and I said the 49ers should move off of Trey Lance. If they're not going to use him, get something of value for him, because if he stays on your team as the third string quarterback, which on ESPN he is listed as the third string quarterback, what can you do besides try to get trade value because you're never going to use him? The only reason you would hang on to him is for a scenario like last year where Jimmy G's already hurt, Trey Lance got hurt, Brock Purdy ended up getting hurt, and now you're left with, Brock Purdy barely able to throw a single yard because his arm is destroyed, or you might have Christian McCaffrey trying to take snaps as well under center. You don't want that situation. I believe, was it Josh or John Johnson came in the game, Joe Johnson, whoever it is, he came into the game at one point, and I believe he ended up getting hurt as well. So they really had no one. That's the only reason why you would keep 3 quarterbacks on your team is in case all of them get hurt. Otherwise, move off of a guy who I think a lot of bad teams like Washington, like Las Vegas, could be interested in getting a guy who's 6'4" and 220 pounds, who's incredibly mobile and seemingly has a lot of potential, as I've been told. Now, I think Trey Lance is a bust, and one of the reasons why I believe that is simply because I don't get to see him play. And in the opportunities where I've seen him play, he has been god-awful. And besides, it's not only when we see him play in that 4-game sample size. It's also, as many pointed out, when me and my dad talked about, Juwan Johnson's comment about Derek Carr versus Drew Brees, that comparison, people said, oh yeah, he was in practice with him for one whole season. Well, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch also looked at Trey Lance for a full season, and they determined, hey, he wasn't that good. Let's bring back Jimmy G. Let's draft Brock Purdy. The only reason you would decide to sit Anthony Richardson for one season, which is the difference between the Trey Lance situation and the Indianapolis Colts situation, is, do you have a mentor where a raw quarterback like Anthony Richardson and like Trey Lance, that they could sort of, understand the game, develop the game, learn from that mentor? The Colts really don't have anybody. They got Gardner Minshew, who, he had one okay season. The other one was, actually, he had 2 okay seasons. And then since that last season where he started was, I think, 9 games, he's now a backup. Now, we saw him for 2 games with the Eagles. He looked pretty good in one game against the Cowboys. They ended up losing that game. And I believe the other game they lost to the Saints. And I believe they couldn't even get past like midfield or something like that. It was pretty bad. But that's the type of thing, that's the type of mentor that the Colts have. They have a backup for the past 3 years. At least with the 49ers, with Trey Lance, they had Jimmy G, who made it to a Super Bowl, who under the Kyle Shanahan offense. I hate to break it to you old Jimmy G haters. He worked very well when he was healthy within the 49ers organization. That's who Trey Lance had. Now, their skill sets were different, but understand the Kyle Shanahan offense, that's what Jimmy G, his role really is to mentor, to be there so Trey Lance could develop his game and basically take items off of Jimmy G's game and implement it into his own to develop him as a quarterback. The Colts don't have that. So what they have to do is trial and error. The 49ers, right, for the past maybe 4, 5, 6 seasons, haven't had the room to do trial and error. Jimmy G was their trial and error period. And when he got hurt, they were left with Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. Quarterbacks that don't usually win games, and I really haven't seen in almost half a decade. So what we're looking at is an opportunity where the Colts have time. They have time to trial and error Anthony Richardson. They do have room to have a lot of failure. I'm not saying go 8 seasons with failure or even 5 seasons with failure. You have 1 or 2 seasons where Anthony Richardson can learn the game, understand NFL speed, and that's the way you want to go. The 49ers have been in win now mode for years. So they needed a quarterback who could come in and immediately win like that. Trey Lance wasn't giving him that. He had trouble in practice with accuracy. He had trouble in games with accuracy. So that's why he wasn't a simple, okay, Jimmy G's out, let's go Trey Lance. Trey Lance, no matter what you do, you're in. Because guess what? When they drafted Trey Lance, the 49ers just came off of a season where they went 6-10 and were injury-riddled throughout their entire roster. Jimmy G actually didn't really get hurt at all, but then they had an opportunity to put in Trey Lance when he was drafted, say, Jimmy G, your history has been injuries. Now, you just made it to the Super Bowl 2 years prior, but right now, we're ready to move on. We have this guy who we drafted at number 3. We traded our future away just to draft this guy. We have to put him in. Instead, they went back to Jimmy G. Trey Lance came in here and there for some run plays and some bootlegs, and it was interesting to watch, but really it was Jimmy G's team. And they even brought him back the following year, last year, when they basically said, Jimmy G, you're gone. This is Trey Lance's team now. They restructured his deal and signed to a 1-year contract. So I think this is a smart idea for the Colts to go in and say, hey, Anthony Richardson, you're our guy. Gardner Minshew, you could be there as a backup to mentor him and just be that backup piece that can give us some stability in case Anthony Richardson gets hurt. But the Colts have a trial period where they could basically say, let's go. We have a brand new head coach. By the way, Shane Steichen, I looked it up and I have it right here. Shane Steichen offensively throughout his career has never been bad. In fact, outside of here, let me get a paper out. Outside of 1 year, which was as the OC in 2021, all of his offenses have been ranked in the top 10. His offense was ranked 10th in 2019 with as offensive coordinator for the Chargers. 2020 it was ranked 9th. 2 years ago, 2021 with the Eagles, it was ranked 14th, and last year it was ranked 3rd. So Shane Steichen offensively has been great. Now defensively, that's where we could see maybe some not too good things, but we'll have to wait and see. So they have a rookie head coach who I do not think will get immediately fired if Anthony Richardson does go 4-13 or whatever the case may be. I do think the Colts are going to be a bad team because they have a super raw quarterback who I agree should be in and should start immediately. Because he is raw, he needs NFL snaps, and that's one of the problems that Trey Lance had, was he didn't get NFL snaps because the 49ers were in win-now mode, and Jimmy G gave them the highest opportunity, the highest percentage to win the largest amount of games. The Colts, they were pretty bad last year. They were terrible. Matt Ryan was supposed to be an upgrade over Carson Wentz, and turned out to be a severe downgrade. In fact, it got so bad they benched him I'm forgetting the quarterback's name. Sam Ehlinger. Like that's bad. And even Nick Foles saw some action. Nick Foles, I feel like, hasn't seen action in like 5 years. He got to see some action. So my bet would be the Colts are going to be bad. They'll probably be under 6 wins. And you know what? That's fine. They have a rookie quarterback who his athleticism is phenomenal. I think his comp was like Josh Allen and Cam Newton, more on the Cam Newton side. So if he has that comp, we need to see him develop under the Colts system with the brand new head coach who has a lot of success, with Justin Herbert and with Jalen Hurts. So we'll see how he develops Anthony Richardson. And besides, he should actually develop him somewhat like Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts has some of the same skills as Anthony Richardson, like his ability to run. His mobility is a huge part of his game, and that's the way Anthony Richardson plays. The only question is, how many hits can Anthony Richardson take? He's a young quarterback. He's going to be, jittery. He's going to be mobile. He's going to be agile. He's going to probably try to initiate some contact. We have to see, what happens there. But my bet would be the Colts are going to be bad, but it doesn't matter because you have a rookie head coach and you have a rookie quarterback that needs to develop. You do have pieces. You still have Jonathan Taylor. You have Michael Pittman. You have Pierce. You have some talent, and you still got Quentin Nelson on the offensive line. The offensive line, I don't think is going to be absolutely abysmal like it was last year, but we'll wait and see because it was supposed to be good last year, and it turned out to be, taking guys off the streets and just moving them around, move all these pieces around to try to make it work, and it turned out to be a cataclysmic failure. So we'll see. My bet would be Colts are going to go under 6 wins, but we'll see Anthony Richardson develop, and hopefully if he looks good, my bet would be you're going to see about 59 to 61% completion percentage. He'll probably drop in 3,000 yards. I'll go 17 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. I think that'll be a pretty good year if I do say so myself. But we'll wait and see exactly what happens next season. All right, let's get into the final topic of today's Harvey Hour, Fired Up. I decided to rank the quarterbacks who are under the most pressure, the top 5 quarterbacks that are under the most pressure entering the 2023 season. Now, I know some of you might look at this list and say you're a Patriots fan, or I've done prior topics on some of these quarterbacks, and you hate them. This is completely unbiased opinion, and I'm just here, spitting the facts. Context and honesty. That's what this show is built around. That's part of its integrity. Context and honesty. So let's jump right in to number 5. We have Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones signed a massive contract, $160 million for 4 years, over $80 million that fully guaranteed to one Daniel Jones, who threw 15 touchdown passes, who had 22 total touchdowns last year. Always got to throw that out there. But I will say this. I have bashed on Daniel Jones several times in the past, but here's the truth of it. He has sort of developed his game under Brian Daboll to be much more of an efficient runner, and the major part of his game is he dropped very far down on the turnover scale. His turnovers have declined severely to where he's not really that turnover prone anymore. But with these new weapons, they went out and got Darren Waller. They drafted a pretty good center. They have pieces. They got Hodges back. They brought back Sterling Shepard as a locker room piece. They have pieces now where I can now say that now Saquon is a different issue, and on Monday we'll talk about that because I believe Monday is the deadline between whether or not Saquon may sit out or will they extend him on future deals. That's the deadline. It closes at 4 p.m. on Monday, so we're gonna talk about Saquon on Monday for sure. But this is it. They have Saquon at the moment. They have a decent offensive line now. They're building it up. They have a great tight end when healthy, and they have pieces around Daniel Jones. We now need to see him develop into the quarterback where he can go back to the playoffs and consistently make the playoffs with no matter who he is. Because this Daniel Jones, I've been told, is the white Michael Vick. So we'll have to wait and see. But Daniel Jones, I think, deserves to be on the hot seat because guess what? Is this just a one-off? Did they wait too long? We'll have to wait and see, but Daniel Jones at number 5 for me. Let's go to number 4 is Kyler Murray. Now, this is sort of, I guess unfair. He tore his ACL late in the season last year. I believe it was against the Patriots. So we don't exactly know when Kyler Murray will be healthy enough to play in the NFL again. But I will say this about his career thus far. It has been actually largely disappointing. And also his off-the-field stuff, the gaming thing in his contract, or the film in his contract to watch 4 hours of film per week, it's not looking good. And he was this super mobile, super athletic quarterback coming into the league. But then we saw in the playoff game against the Rams, there was a report that he was scared to run the football. You are a mobile quarterback. Your legs are a major component of your game, and it's a major part of why you are, the quarterback you are today. You got drafted so high. You got, this massive contract with a lot of guaranteed money. It was because your ability to run and your arm, but mainly I think your ability to run, was actually why you've been, at least contractually successful. Now, when are you going to come back and show you're actually, worth the money? Last year was pretty embarrassing. You did not have a great season. In fact, it was embarrassing. We saw it. I believe it was opening Sunday when you were against the Chiefs. It was pretty bad. The Chiefs just stomped right all over you, and you couldn't get your offense going. So Kyler Murray for me is on the hot seat. My guess would be, again, if Kyler Murray's out, 8 weeks, let's say, he's going to come back, sometime in November. Well, I think the Cardinals could be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes here. And I mean, if I had the opportunity, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, mature, immature, not contractually bound to watch film, at least it's not written in his contract, to 4 hours a week, I'm going to go draft Caleb Williams. So that's my pick at number 4. We'll have to wait and see if Kyler Murray comes back and shocks the world. He absolutely explodes back onto the field. Maybe, I'll be wrong and I'll say, he lived up to whatever his contract was thus far, and maybe they shouldn't go get Caleb Williams. But at this current moment, I'm saying go get Caleb Williams, probably the better, more mature quarterback coming out of USC. Let's get into number 3. It's Aaron Rodgers. I'll say this right before I jump into this. Congratulations, the New York Jets. You got Hard Knocks. Robert Saleh's not happy about that, though. But it made the most sense. They're the most interesting team in the NFL. They got a brand new quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Was a 3-4-time MVP, Aaron Rodgers. 2 years removed from now being a back-to-back MVP. So what should we see from Aaron Rodgers this season with, you could say arguably better weapons, definitely better weapons. You just got the offensive rookie of the year. You got McCole Hardman. You got your buddy back, Randall Cobb, who may see the field for 10 seconds. Who knows? You got Alan Lazard on the team. I don't like your tight ends, Tyler Conklin and all that. I think you should have gotten, instead of McDonald, you should have gotten Dalton Kincaid or Michael Mayer. We'll have to wait and see. You got Breece Hall back. Your offensive line is questionable depending on Mekhi Becton's health. You also have a 40-year-old tackle, Dwayne Brown. You got Elijah Vera Tucker is probably your best offensive piece. Your offensive line is worse than Green Bay's, but I will say this. What are you going to bring to the table? You just went 8-9 with the Green Bay Packers and looked abysmal in that last game against the Lions. You choke in the playoffs all the time. I don't care what people say. You're a choker in the playoffs. Couldn't beat Jimmy G in your type of environment when it's snowing and freezing out. What are you going to bring to the Jets, who people are saying is a better team than the Green Bay Packers right now? And I agree with that. I should be expecting closer to MVP Aaron Rodgers than I would 8-9 last year Packers Rodgers. But we'll have to wait and see, because Rodgers does not work well with young receivers. Just check last year. He takes off seasons off. This is what Aaron Rodgers knows. He goes on these darkness retreats, does a little ayahuasca and takes some Percocet. He lives his life. You know what? More power to him. But I did see some positive things so far. As soon as he got signed, it seemed like he was working with his receivers, working with his team, working in the offseason. He seems excited and sort of seems reinvigorated when he's on the Jets. So I think the Jets will be much better with Aaron Rodgers. But how much better? Will they make it to the playoffs? And then if they do make the playoffs, will Aaron Rodgers win a playoff game? We'll have to wait and see. Aaron Rodgers, is this his last year in the NFL? I put you on the hot seat. You are the third highest quarterback under pressure. Let's go number 2, Russell Wilson. Now, he may have been number 1. Maybe on a lot of your lists out there, he would be your number 1 quarterback who's under the most pressure. I put him here because I think what we're seeing from Russell Wilson is a trend, and I've said this several times on the Harvey Hour before. This is a trend, not a blip. Because a blip would be he has one single, that was a bad season. Except we've sort of seen this downtrend, and last season it could have been, exaggerated because of Nathaniel Hackett. But we've seen sort of a dip in Russell Wilson's career, and now we're up to the point where, you have Sean Payton, who is one of the best offensive coaches in the history of the NFL. Your offensive line's building. You're getting all your receivers back. They're getting healthier. Your running backs are getting healthier. Your defense was number 1 in passing last season. What are you going to bring to the table? What are you, Russell Wilson, going to bring to the table? My guess would be you got to run much more. You have to, not be as bad as you were last season. You had Patrick Starr insult you on live TV. Think about that. A cartoon character was making fun of you on live TV. That's the Russell Wilson we saw last year. What are we going to see this year? I don't expect much from Russell Wilson. I'm going to expect, maybe slightly better. They won, 6 games last season? I'm going to expect near 10. At least that's what you should expect from Russell Wilson, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He made it there twice. So that's what I'm expecting. So Russell Wilson's number 2. And the number 1 highest quarterback, the one that's under the most pressure, according to me, is Josh Allen. Now, I truthfully believe the Bills' Super Bowl window has shut. The closest the Bills have gotten was when they were up with 13 seconds left against the Chiefs, and they had the worst defensive run I've ever seen. 13 seconds left. The Chiefs had 2 or 3 timeouts remaining, and you guard the sidelines, leaving the middle of the field wide open. That was probably your best shot at making it to the Super Bowl, and you choked it. Last year was almost a complete embarrassment. It was still embarrassing, but it was almost a complete and utter embarrassment from the start of the postseason. You almost lost to Mike McDaniel starting Skylar Thompson? The game went to the wire with Skylar Thompson as the Dolphins quarterback. Not even Tua, not even Teddy Bridgewater, but Skylar Thompson. What does that say about you, Josh Allen? You couldn't put Skylar Thompson away in that, a very, very poor Dolphins defense. I think they were ranked 18th. You couldn't put them away? And then you go up against the Bengals, and that was just a complete, utter, just annihilation by the Bengals. And so now you have your receiver chirping at you, and your receiver doesn't show up to one of the mini camps, and that blows up. What's the situation? I think it's going to be interesting. I think, truthfully, the Bills' Super Bowl window has shut. And it's right now, I think it's about to be locked and secured for eternity, at least under the Josh Allen realm. I do not see the Bills making it to the Super Bowl because I think right now the Jaguars, Chiefs, and Bengals have a much higher chance at making it to the Super Bowl than the Bills do. Now, Josh Allen has graced the cover of Madden 24. Is the Madden curse going to strike him? I think, not even before he was on the cover did he have some sort of curse because they could not seem to get over the hump of the Bengals or even of the Chiefs. So that is my ranking for the quarterbacks under the most pressure heading into the 2023-2024 NFL season. This was a pretty good show. We went about half an hour almost, about 25 minutes. Thank you all for tuning in today's episode of the Harvey Hour Fired Up. My name is Nathan Harvey. I appreciate you joining me today. I will be back, or I guess me and my dad will be back on Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And because anyone out there who's watching this, I'll give you a little sneak peek to one of the topics. We will be ranking our top 5 best NBA jerseys historically. So not current, but overall, over the course of the NBA lifetime, our top 5 best jerseys in NBA history. So stay tuned for that. Friday, 6:30 p.m.